Okay, now that we are back, Dave, if you haven't hung up because of my two commercials, we gotta make a living here somehow, Dave. So, my friend, I wanna dig into now what intrigued me about your life is all of the business successes that you have had. Before we do that, Karen wanted to talk a little bit about the actual book and the book title.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Joe. And Dave, you and I were talking during the break about, pieces of the book that piqued my interest, and one of them obviously was the title, Come On America.
No. What you told him was you went to the back page of the book first.
Well, I did. After I read the title, I'm like, well, what does he mean by that? So I said, where's that chapter? It's the last chapter. So, read the end first, right? So I would love to dig into that a little bit. And because like I said during the break, I found myself nodding in agreement with almost all of what you were saying in that chapter, because I, kind of given the state of our current events, it really resonated with me. And one sentence in particular, in the last chapter that I've highlighted, says, and this is you speaking to the author, I'm worried that we in America don't think about how fortunate we've been, where we've come from and where we're going. We don't know how to work together, or we have forgotten. And we look at what were once trusted organizations, not so much anymore. So talk to us a little bit about how you came to the title of the book, and based on your experiences, kind of where you think we are now and what our outlook is relative to unity.
Well, the book was going to be called No Whining.
I like that too.
And my wife gave me a red leather sign, and gold letter says "No Whining," and it's been on my desk for 20-some years. Mm-hmm. And so Mary said, "Well, let's use that." And I said, "Well, that suits me. I mean, just whatever you think's appropriate." And the book publisher said, "It's great, but it doesn't say exactly what this book is all about, and it's a negative thing, no whining." Mm-hmm. So they came up with, and I agree, "Come On America." And I think people are interpreting like, are you saying "come on" or "come on America"? What emphasis are you saying "come on America"?
Yeah.
But it's saying let's really understand where we are, who we are, and where we're going. I mean, no matter who we listen to on TV or in the newspapers. Mm-hmm. And I think we are divided, and purposely divided because of politics. And that's one of the beauties of our democracy, and that it sells well overseas when you got 22 people running for president.
Right.
Well, Dave, when I read the title and then got about halfway through the book, to me, "Come On" was this inspirational thought, right? Let's mm-hmm. get together, let's get some stuff done. Dave's the kind of guy, and I know you're getting a little up in age, but I bet you still do this. You wake up in the morning and think, okay, what am I going to do today? And so that's just what I got from this was, let's go, let's get some stuff done, and let's inspire people around us. That's kind of how I interpreted this. Would I be missing the mark with that?
No, that's exactly right. And it gets down to what I've experienced in life. People want to know people face to face, eyeball to eyeball. And all this technology has just taken us away from being personal. And you can read people, their body language or their eyes, or whether they're interested or not interested. And on a computer, you can't do this. And a computer has its purpose, but I've told so many people that you really want to make this happen. Some idea they have, and that person you've been talking to, I said, get on a plane and fly and look at them face to face. And I've always had that philosophy, it's face to face.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we're missing.
Yeah. So, okay, now, Dave, we've only got about 15 minutes left in this show, and we're not even halfway through the book. So,
right. so I won't talk as much.
So, maybe I should talk later.
Joe, we want to hear him.
So let's try and run through some of this stuff so we can get through as much as possible. Okay. So talk a little bit about. I'm in a chapter where it talks about taking a risk. You know, and I'm reading the fact that you're 30 years old and you decided to buy the machinery to create a weaving mill. Talk just a little bit about, because to me, in my mind, all of us small business people have the moment we remember we first decided we're going to do this, right? Talk a little bit about your thought in that regard.
Well, I was out on the road selling fabric, and all over America. Then we were traveling internationally, and found competition, and they are undercutting you in price, and you understand, competition is competition, but then you really start learning that they have their own direct vertical mill. And we are converters, meaning we buy from big mills and sell to small upholstery operations all over. And so I said the only way we're going to really grow is to buy a mill. A mill came up for sale that was in the apparel business, and that I bought it, and my family wasn't that interested in it. And I did it, and it's
Dave, did they discourage you from doing it, or did they embrace it?
Well, they were intrigued. They said, "You don't know a thing about manufacturing. You don't know a piece of machinery. You don't even know how to turn it on."
They might be right about that at the time, right?
You're totally right.
But you were going to figure it out.
So, Dave, we've got to take another break. When we come back, let's dig into I don't know how else to describe it, but I think you changed the direction of High Point with your vision. Matter of fact, I'm reading this section. At the time, in the mid-1970s, the idea of renovating an old building would have been both venturous and innovative. And what we're talking about is you renovating the old Tomlin Furniture Company in downtown High Point and turning it. It is the start of High Point becoming a furniture, what do I want to call it?
A mecca.
Yeah, absolutely.
Furniture market mecca.
World renowned.
Worldwide.
So let's take a break. When we come back, let's dig into that.
Okay.
You are listening to Local Biz Now. I am Joe Vagnone, and I am talking with the ambassador of Estonia, which we haven't even got there yet, Karen.
We need 2 hours.
Dave Phillips. If it's Friday morning, we're talking to interesting people. We'll be right back. And we are back. You are listening to Local Biz Now. I am Joe Vagnone, and I am here with my co-host for the entire month, Karen Bentley of Bentley Consulting. We have on the phone Ambassador Dave Phillips. Dave, are you there, my friend?
I am here.
Now, Dave, you and I don't know each other, so let me just give you a little bit of prep on the show. This entire show, which I've been doing for a little over 6 years, is totally designed and set up to make fun of Joe. So feel free to jump in at any time and disagree with me or correct me anytime you want, sir. So I appreciate so much you calling in. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So let me do an intro on you. Let me try and do this, and I don't think I'm going to do it justice, but I just found this phenomenal. And let me start with this. Dave's life is an American success story, from disability to achievement and acclaim. His journey teaches invaluable lessons to those just starting out, and it confirms the truth of freedom, power, for us all. He is a good friend and also an inspiration. And that was written at the front of your book by Mitt Romney, Republican presidential nominee and governor of Massachusetts. I'm not done. Dave served North Carolina as Secretary of Commerce, who helped me recruit hundreds of thousands of new jobs from all over the world. Dave is a fireball. That is from Governor James Hunt. Another one. It has been my honor and privilege to work with Dave, and I enjoy his friendship. Dave and Kay, which is your wife, are family friends. To truly understand his success and ambitions, you have to understand his love for community. That is James Martin, governor of North Carolina. I got one more. And listen, I could probably read for the entire show the people that have spoke about you, Dave. It is just simply remarkable. Whether you or Dave will be impressed with his full life of challenges, exciting experiences, contributions to the world. His growth mindset has driven him to constant pursuit of success and happiness. Truly an outstanding example for all of us. And that was from Kelly King, the chairman and CEO of BB&T Corporation. I must tell you, Dave, it is just impressive. There is no other way, and I could continue, there's no other way to introduce you than to say the people that you have known in your life and that think so much of you is just inspirational. I also look at the forward of your book, and again, we're only in page 3 of the book, right, buddy? And it is just phenomenal. Nito Cuban, I hope I'm saying that correctly, the president of High Point University, says, if you don't know Dave Phillips, you will be inspired by his intense determination and curiosity. And he goes on to talk about his joy and affection for you. And he ends it with the fact that your book is full of successes and it is framed in a significant life. And so I introduce Dave Phillips in that way, Dave, by saying, wow, man, I didn't even get to the 3rd page of the book, and I was already impressed that this guy has lived a full life. Walk me through your thoughts on even allowing this book to be written, right? It really is a remarkable sort of bullet point of your life, if I could put it that way.
Well, a lady in High Point who writes a full-page column every Sunday in the High Point Enterprise about people and about civic organizations and what's going on in High Point. Not a social calendar and not political at all. And she has taught all of us in High Point, all these different community groups who are doing a great job in their neighborhood, and that so we've all gotten to know her over the last decade, and she is what I call in her Sunday column fair, and she's not trying to be negative or anything. And she approached me and said, she said, I want to write a book. Would you let me write about you and your stories? And because I've heard some of them, and I at first, it made me very nervous. She came to my office, and so we looked, and I said, well, I'm honored, but how, you've never written a book before, what do you think it's going to be like? Well, anyway, I didn't agree originally, and then she came back with a recorder, and I said, I just don't want this recorded. So we did face-to-face over a long period of time, and never on the telephone and not in writing. And she pieced all this together, because I don't spend a whole lot of time at High Point.
Well, and you know, what's interesting is I felt that, right? In the book, she says you wanted to meet face-to-face, one-on-one, which sort of defines you, right? And as you're reading the book, you can tell she's kind of got to pull some stuff out of you, right? So did I interpret that correctly, that she was kind of squeezing from time to time?
Absolutely. That's what made me nervous. I said, oh, because she knows everything. I mean, she knows all the gossip. But I think it came out where it's fair.
I got to be honest with you. I do not. I read about 100 books in the last year and a half or so, and I do not read a lot of biographies. It was not my intention to read this book. It was your publisher that actually called me and said, "Hey, will you do me a favor and read this, Joe? It's just a unique gentleman with a unique life." And I thought, oh gosh, all right, I'll do it. But I mean, what can this guy be? It's from High Point. Come on.
Come on, man.
Come on, give me a break. And I got to be honest with you, buddy. I started reading this, and it it is amazing, and I can't wait to get into some of this stuff. But it is amazing all of the things that you've done in your life. I mean, do you look back and say, "Wow, I can't believe I did that," or did you always find yourself knowing that you were just going to keep continuing to reinvent yourself? How does that happen? Walk me through looking back at this.
Well, I've always been curious, and I'm always willing to ask a lot of questions. I drive some people crazy. And then I walk into a room, my wife says, "But aren't you going to get me a drink?" And I'm sitting there talking to somebody that's standing. And I want to know who they are, where they're from, what they do. And so I just love meeting people, talking to them, all these different experiences that we all have. And through life, I just met different people, and they said, "Let's go and do this together," or "Would you do this?" And I have, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So now it's our turn, right? Now, so let's get started. The first question I've got is, because I wasn't sure, your upbringing, did your father have some wealth? It seems like he had some connections and relationships that would put you sort of in the upper middle class. Am I interpreting that correctly? You are. He started off as a fabric salesman from Virginia and moved to High Point in the 20s and sold fabric to furniture manufacturers. Okay, and so he did give you the privilege of starting off in a good foundation. Absolutely. Okay, so now let me read this from the book. As I grew, my leg did not grow properly above or below the knee. As a child, I had to wear a 6-inch build-up shoe. But having a built-up shoe was not the worst thing. And walk me through that, right? Because I can already tell, page 5 of the book, this is a guy that was not going to let this obvious problem affect him at an early age. Walk through what it's like to have that disability. Well, I thought a lot about that over the years, and I didn't have a bad feeling. I knew it was unusual, and people talked about it, curious, but I was born with it. I grew up with a shoe slowly being built up because my leg did not grow. But before then, my left foot was out, pointed to the left. It wasn't pointed in, it was to the left. And it had 3 toes. And it was a birth defect. And they slowly... the first few years, moved the leg so it's straight, and then, but I had this built-up shoe because over 14 years, it got to be where it was 6 inches. And what I found, I couldn't help but laugh because you put in the book, but I could kick a football really good. I really do. So I could just tell this is a positive guy, right? He's going to find the positive in that. And then I go a little bit further in the book, and then I find out that you had a heart disease. I mean, if you don't have enough challenges growing up, right, you've got a heart disease. So talk about your life growing up and knowing that you just had these physical issues that you had to deal with. Well, rheumatic fever, and that was a scary, dangerous thing back then. And I had to sit in my home and really couldn't even go downstairs. I had to sit upstairs because he said exertion of the heart, even if you walk up and down the steps. So for a long period of time, I lived upstairs in our home and didn't go to school, didn't do anything. Couldn't see my friends. Every now and then they let some come upstairs, but they wanted me very quiet, and I took a lot of penicillin, and it took months. What did you do during that time? What were you thinking? Do you remember what you were thinking at that time? Oh, yeah. I can see myself in the bed, and that Mom and Dad had a TV set, and I sat in there and saw all the silly shows that we've all talked about for years, but the thing that's in the book that scares the willies out of everybody was Mom knew I loved to shoot. And anyway, he bought me a pistol. Yep. And there was a porch, and I go out on the porch, and Mama put up a target on a tree, and I'd shoot at that target. Well, that got boring as a dickens after. So there's a fella and he had been working on the lawnmower, had a ball glass of jar, and getting some gasoline. I said, Pee-wee, would you do me a favor? And I said, is the jar empty? And he said, it is. And I said, would you hold it out and see if I can shoot it? Well, I mean, you know, I've been haunted by that ever since.
You know, this book could have been different if if that shot would have been different.
Well, I shot several, and he used up his containers, and my mom found some debris a few days later, and obviously started asking a lot of questions, and took my pistol away.
But you talk in the book that was something that was your first, what you believe to be success. You got a feel for what success looked like because you became quite good at that.
Became good at it, and then skeet shooting. I had a lot of friends or friends of my parents who went out to a certain skeet field there in High Point, and I started shooting at a very young age, shooting skeet with my built-up sheet. So I was already comfortable shooting, and then it just I kept on shooting for years and loved it.
Yeah, I could tell. But the thing that inspired me was when you defined this is a moment that I realize I can succeed. This is something I'm good at, and it started in your mind knowing what success looks like in your mind. Is that a fair way to interpret that?
Fair enough, because I was just a kid sitting in a room wondering what all the other kids were doing, and all of a sudden this became very important to me as to I was able to become successful. Successful meaning breaking the jar or shooting skeet.
Right.
Going to a lot of tournaments. I started at a very young age going to tournaments. And older people took me to these tournaments. I mean, it was fabulous. It wasn't really my mom and dad.
So now I'm here at chapter 4, and we talk about you going to boarding school. Walk me through that. That's really not a common thing anymore. Most of us don't know what that's like.
Well, it's a complete change, and that's one of the reasons my parents, I call it sent me off, is there's some boarding schools here in the South, but they sent me all the way to Connecticut, and because they had a friend in New York whose son was going there, and I'd never heard of it. But now, you know, well, anyway, I got accepted, and that was great. And it's a whole new group of people that I had a leg, and they didn't know I had an artificial leg until, you know, I couldn't play football or something like that. But it's changed my life to get away and have my own identity, and to have new friends, and I'm forever grateful. Very smart thing to do.
So the title of the chapter is Accidental Yankee. So I'm curious. Did you find yourself comfortable in that northern setting, or did you find yourself yearning to get back to the South, or was there no difference in your eyes?
I felt accepted, and I really felt with the masters. You lived in these houses that you had a couple that lived in the house, so it was very homey. It wasn't big old cold dorms.
Right.
And there were a few Southerners, like a handful, but they're all from, I call them Yankees.
There's a story in the book that you talk about, which is one I thought you lived in a sort of an upper middle class home. Your family has a blue marlin release tournament that you have up in your family's Hatteras home, and you talk about the people that were there. The Texas governor, John Conley was there, Jimmy Roosevelt, the son of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And you talk about the story that Conley tells. Can you tell that story to the people? It was intriguing because it gave me some insight into this life that you lived, because it truly was an interesting life from a very early age.
Well, it's because of my father, of course, that he loved to fish, and he loved to go up and down the East Coast, and found out that off the coast of North Carolina is fabulous fishing for blue marlin. You got to go far enough out, and not sailfish, but blue marlin, and that. So he and a group got together, and that and they were from kind of all over the East Coast because they all known each other, going into different ports fishing, and it turned out that our next door neighbor, whose dad knew his father, was probably his best friend. The son wanted to go down there and go fishing, so the whole crowd went down, and the son saw that these boats they had down there couldn't even go out through the bad weather because of the waves, and they're all straight hull boats. And this guy, he was in the hosier business, and he said, well, he can make a boat with a flared hull out of fiberglass. Never been done before. Well, that was the beginning of Hatteras Yachts. He came back to High Point and made this yacht at an old filling station at 41-footer, and Dad was chairman of the board, and Willis was president, and all of a sudden they launched this boat company, and that it's just all because of that one episode in Hatteras, North Carolina.
That is interesting. So, let's do this. Let's take a break, and I want to get into the chapter that talks about taking risk. It is, as a small business guy, it is the one area that I find myself reading over and trying to understand your step-by-step approach to starting your business in High Point. So let's take a break, and we'll come back, and we are continue to talk with Ambassador Dave Phillips. You are listening to Local Biz Now. I am Joe Vagnone. If it's Friday morning, your business matters. We'll be right back.
In Statesville.
And we're back. You are listening to WSIC. I am Joe Vagnone, and this is Local Biz Now, and we are talking with the Ambassador of Astoria, David Phillips. And Dave, we've got so much to cover and no time to do it. So and I'll let you just kind of lump it all together, take it in any direction you want to take it in. But I want you to talk about starting, let's call it the Market Square, the renovation of the old warehouse into the Furniture Mart. To talk a little bit about that, because it was innovative for the South, right? And it was innovative for the furniture market in general. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I can, and it's an old building, turn of the century, big building, Tomlinson Furniture Company. I came back from a show in San Francisco, and these were old buildings, as is San Francisco, and they're old buildings, and they restore these old buildings, they use them, and I was driving to work the next day, and there's a certain way I go, and I pass this building my entire career, and there was, just hit me, these are exactly what I saw yesterday in San Francisco, and Bill Tomlin's son, he and his brother, I just called him up, and I said, I've got an idea. Can I come by and express it to you? Well, he thought I was crazy, and I kind of thought I was crazy. So it's just, but to talk and to find and explore, that's what it's all about. I mean, he could have very well said no, or I could have walked all through it and said, I'm not sure this is going to work. But he agreed his company needed to move into a more modern space instead of all the floors. But he had the big smokestack. He had the water tower. I mean, it's just a beautiful old building. And we started off. We're 2 blocks from the main buildings downtown, and people said, "Well, you're not in the main traffic and coming all the way over there to see this stuff." And so what evolved? We got one major company, and then they all started coming. The decorators. It's a cut above regular furniture. It's kind of a design decorator center. So it became very, very successful in a very short period of time. And
did it? Did you see it, Dave, as a very big calculated risk, or did you believe this is a no-brainer because there's nothing like this in the area and the market will pick up on it quick? I mean, what was your thoughts when you were putting it together?
Oh, I thought it's a calculated risk. If I could buy it cheap enough, then I could rent space cheaper than the competition downtown, and so it took me some time to find the first tenant who was willing to take that gamble. I mean, it has old wooden floors and has exposed pipes and all that sort of stuff. And
right.
There was one very prominent company who said, "All right, we'll do it." And I went off out of the town because I knew all the companies and walking the halls of the market for years. And there's a company that never came to High Point because they didn't have to. They were so prominent and very upper end. And I just called them up one day and I said, so anyway, I talked him into coming to High Point and showed him the space, and he loved it. And that's when he signed up, then it became very successful very quickly.
And you also talk in the book that at some point in this process, this temporary space became very, very unique and a rare opportunity. Can you talk briefly about that as well?
I can. This building had a basement area, and it was dark, and it's a basement, and it's big, and the tenants said to me one day, we would like to come, but we don't want to sign a 5-year lease. You know, we're willing to test it out, so we just hung draperies between posts, and they would take a small amount, and they said, we'll pay you twice as much. So we just want to come and test the High Point market, see if our stuff will sell.
And that statement, we'll pay twice as much. And that statement, Dave, in that statement, we'll pay twice as much worked for you, didn't it?
It sure did.
So, okay, Dave, we've only got a couple minutes left, but I'm looking at these photos of who's who in our political arena over the years, and you are with them. I'd like you to give me a brief thought with some of these people in the photos. Let's start with Mitt Romney. What's your thought in relationship with Mitt?
Mitt asked me to get involved in his campaign, and that's where I really got to know him, spent a lot of time with him, and admire him so much. He's a quality individual. Condoleezza
Rice, I see you're in a photo, and also your wife as well.
Well, she was Secretary of State when I was an ambassador to Estonia. She swore me in.
Okay. I noticed that you're walking with George Bush W. What kind of relationship did you have with him?
Very close. George W., I worked for him as ambassador, but I had got to know him because of his father, George H.W., and because I spent a lot of time with him, and this was in politics, and he's been in our home, and so I felt comfortable.
Yeah, he does seem like a cool guy, I don't. Okay, you're standing next to FBI director, former FBI director Robert Mueller.
You've heard about him recently, haven't you?
Yeah.
He was head of the FBI when he came to Europe for a tour and what was happening in our country of Estonia and our hometown of Tallinn. It was the first time that all the FBI folks in Europe gathered together in one location to have a conference, a meeting, and so I helped arrange all that, and so that's where I got to know him.
Dave, thank you so much, Dave. We simply ran out of time. I'd love to get you back and finish the other half of the book, my friend. We have so much more we could talk to you about. It has been an honor talking with you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to talk to y'all.
You've been talking with the ambassador of Estonia, Dave Phillips. It is a life that is phenomenal. If it's Friday morning, your business matters. Karen, thank you so much for being here this month. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. It's been great.
We'll talk with you next week.